some of those conversations, someone from a completely different cultural setting coming into your world and being able to observe and actually make some helpful comments. For me as a leader, that's been really helpful because it is so culturally different over there. And I guess I've got some insight. When we went over there, I was able to see some stuff in the culture, which maybe you don't see so easily when you're swimming in it.
Hello and welcome to Independence, the FIEC podcast for church leaders. It's great to have you with us. And we've got a bit of a transatlantic theme going on today because with me today I've got Greg Spencer and Andy Rees. I'm going to get them to introduce themselves in just a moment, but I just want to point out for those who are watching, I've got my contextual hat on. I'm wearing my NFL hat just so that Greg feels at home, really. So let's do this a bit different. I'll tell you what, I won't get you to introduce yourselves. Andy, I'm going to get you to introduce Greg. Tell us who Greg is. And then Greg, I'm going to get you to go second, Greg. So you can, just in case Andy is rude or anything like that, you can multiply the offense. So Andy, you kick us off. Who's Greg?
So Greg is the pastor of First Baptist Church in Ellisville in Mississippi. Ellisville is a town of about 5,000, but it also has a college campus, so the population swells to about 20,000 when all the students are there. He's been there for about 4.5-5 years. Before that, he was church planting in Las Vegas, but then the Lord sort of moved them on to Ellisville. Or is it Ellisville? I always get this wrong.
Ellisville will be fine. Ellisville, but he's trying to say it local in a British accent, and it just doesn't translate well.
I think I want to hear Andy say it in a Mississippi accent. Or is that not on the cards?
Well, no, I want to be welcomed when I go back to Ellisville. So I'm not going to try.
There we go. Thanks. Well, Greg, great to have you with us. I realise you've come a long way over the wires and under the channel on the cable. So thanks so much for joining us. Greg, who's Andy?
Well, Andy is one of the pastors, the lead guy at CityGates Church in Norwich. I didn't know where Norwich was, didn't know it even existed until we met online.
Do you notice, Andy, how Greg got Norwich right? They didn't say Norwich. You know, he made an effort, Andy. Did you notice that, to get the name right?
And I still have to hammer my people about that because, I mean, I'm trying to represent us well, like we're educated people, and they still, Norwich is like a sandwich. I mean, it's not that way. But anyway.
Sure.
Reese has the privilege of leading that sweet, dear group of people there in Norwich, trying to effectively reach this neighborhood, the university setting. Got a great staff there at CityGates Church, a beautiful family, Grace and the girls, and Andy has just developed into a really dear friend. We communicate, I won't say daily, but it's pretty close to daily. We've always got some smart remark to send over the WhatsApp or something to that regards, but we bounce a lot of ideas off of each other, and it's been really, really fun.
Good. Now, just tell us a little bit more about the churches. Greg, let me ask you about your church, and then Andy will ask about yours, because Norwich and Ellisville, there are similarities. You know, talking about a campus and students, but also very different places, obviously.
Yes.
So, just give us a feel for Greg for the place in the church. Will you do that?
Yeah, our church doesn't have the long, illustrious history. We're like 1880 something is when we were established. I think 1882 to be example, but to be specific. But yeah, we are. Mississippi doesn't have nearly the population that Norwich has, or even England. I mean, we've got about 3 million people in our whole state, and so we're about the same size as England, though. So, it tells you the difference. We're a smaller town, but Mississippi is made up of a lot of smaller towns. But we do have the university setting, as Andy said just a moment ago, because our town kind of swells during the day, and then people go back to their homes in the evening time. And so, but we're right in the middle of that town. Lots of traffic go by us. We've been on this corner for a long, long, long time, and most people who live here will know where we're at and what we do, but it's always a challenge. It's a challenge trying to reach a culture that believes really in their heart and their mind that because I know about Jesus and I've been around Jesus and I've been around the things of Jesus, that that I have a relationship with him, and we know that's not true. And so that's the difficulty we have to meet every day.
Andy, tell us a bit more about CityGates.
Well,
Hasn't always been CityGates.
No. Lots of people on the podcast might know it was once known as Surrey Chapel. We changed the name about 2-3 years ago, just because we'd moved location. There's a whole bunch of reasons. There's a podcast on that. You can listen to it. FIEC podcast.
I enjoyed doing that one with you.
Oh, it's fun. Yeah, it's fun. So we're a city centre church. Norwich is a very secular city. There's about 350 of us on a Sunday morning, all ages and stages. Students come over from the main campus, and just the mission in Norwich is so different to what it is over in Ellisville. And I just think one of my reflections, having had the privilege of getting to go over there, is just, they are kind of in Bible Belt territory. And there is still a huge cultural Christianity, as Greg was talking about there. And if you like, lots of people could articulate what sounds a lot like the gospel, the Billy Graham gospel, but that is not the case in Norwich. People are ignorant. It's like every other city in this country. I think we are the second most secular city in the nation. So Brighton have just overtaken us for the number of people who tick nuns. There's like 53% of Norwich say they have no religion, and there is a lot of ignorance. People will relate to that in the UK, but it is such a different setting to reach people for Christ than it is out in Mississippi.
Right. Now, how did you two guys meet? I mean, it seems very unlikely. The places have some things in common, but not, they're not natural. You wouldn't expect to go to Norwich and see a sign that says twinned with Ellisville, Mississippi. That's there aren't connections. You don't make mustard there, and all those kinds of things. So what on earth was a connection? Where did you meet Greg?
Well, it was christianmingle.com. No, not really. We joke about that because that's what it felt like a little bit. But to catch people up that may be watching, the Mississippi Baptist Convention has had somewhat of a loose partnership with the UK all the way back, I think maybe 2010. I know my first trip to the UK was actually to Scotland in 2012. And so, that partnership has had some momentum. It's lost momentum. The pandemic really kind of slowed it to a screech. Yeah. And about the time that the pandemic was coming to an end, I came to Ellisville and looking for some opportunities for our church to really plug in. And I thought about this partnership. And so I made the connections with our state convention people, and I submitted a church profile, and then I get a church profile back from Andy, and we set up a call, and we just kind of hit it off from
churchmingle.com. I think you're describing, rather than christianmingle.com.
Yeah, that might be what it is too. But that's really how it worked. It was, as I sit here and I have to talk about it, I really think that was obviously it's a God thing. I mean, we just really hit that off really, and we're really fortunate with that. And I think it both has surprised both of us.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk a little bit about what that partnership looks like. But just as you're speaking, Greg, prompts me to ask just kind of a question that I might want to ask at the end, but I'll ask it now because I remember. Do you think that a good connection between you as leaders is essential to making a partnership between churches work?
No doubt whatsoever. And I've said this from my perspective in ministry through all these years as the lead pastor. If I'm not engaged in this, then it's not going to happen.
Yeah, you can't just say to some other guy in the church, "You look after this."
Right. Now there may come a point where you hand it off to somebody else, but you better be the pioneer. You better be the trailblazer. But yes, both of us caught the vision of what this could be. And so we're now at the point where we're able to dream big, and we're looking, and we'll talk more about it. We're looking in, summer of 2025, doing some big things that's going to stretch not only us, but stretch CityGates Church as well.
Okay. So, Andy, you got the ping on your phone, the notification that someone had liked your profile on churchmingle.com. What does this partnership look like over the last few years? What's it actually look like in concrete terms?
So it was when we were coming out of the pandemic, and we made the connection. And for us, the church, we were playing with the idea of doing a holiday club in the local park at something called Summerfest. And we've done a podcast about that as well, Adrian.
You are like a repeat offender on the podcast, aren't you? You keep coming back. Yeah.
Fortunately, yeah. So, but actually for us to pull that off, we were just thinking, we're not sure we're going to have enough manpower locally. And so that kind of forced us to think about, look, we wanted to connect via this historic link with the Mississippi Southern Baptists, and the Lord put us in contact, obviously, with Greg as we reached out. But it was to enable us to have some people on the ground to help us try this new venture of which we called Summerfest, which in effect was Fun Day, followed by a week, sort of 4 or 5 days of holiday club in a local park, some evening stuff that we did with line dancing and various other activities. The team from Mississippi ran that, where we were seeking to engage more people in the local community. It was something that specifically for us was very contextualized and kind of works because of where our church is in and the sort of community that we're in, but it involved a big tent, overnight security, an awful lot more work than we realized. But it wouldn't have happened that first year if we hadn't have had Greg and the team coming. So them coming meant that we were kind of forced to do it, even though there was a point where we thought, should we be doing this? We've bitten off too much than we can chew. But them coming enabled us to do some outreach in the community that we thought would be helpful.
So that interests me, Andy. Well, Andy and Greg, that interests me because it was a very tangible thing from day one then.
Yes.
Because it strikes me that when we think about partnerships between churches, we often think in very sort of soft terms, about relational stuff, and all of that is important, of course. But having something to get your teeth into from day one, did that really help make a good start?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, there were some clear objectives from the very beginning. Yeah. And
so it wasn't just we want to get to know you. It was
right.
Can you come and help us with this? Basically.
Yeah, exactly. Reese and I have talked about this. Our whole objective, and you'll hear me say this even when we're at the FIEC conference. Our objective as Mississippi Baptists is not to come over there and tell you what to do, how to do your job better than you. We want to jump in and be hands and feet wherever you want us to be and offer our gifts. But yes, having that clear, identifiable goals was so big. And that falls to leadership as well, too.
Yeah. And that servant-heartedness really matters, doesn't it, Andy? You've got people coming and saying, tell us what you want us to do.
Yes.
Rather than, here's what we'll do.
Yes.
Yeah. That's a completely different ball game.
It's a completely different ball game. And it was so helpful because in one of the first conversations I had with Greg was like, he said, look, we don't want to bring a choir over to sing for you guys. That's not.
You disappointed at that, or?
I would have gone back to Wales to get a choir from there rather than Mississippi.
Okay.
But that was
the partnership has now come to an end.
I'm sure they sing really well. In fact, their music group is phenomenal. So, Greg, don't share that clip with your church. But actually, just their desire to say, look, we really just want to serve and we want to be useful and we will do whatever is useful for you guys. And that willingness to do whatever. I mean, Greg has this phrase that you need to be fat, you need to be flexible, you need to be available, teachable. Are those things?
There you go.
Hey, hang on. This needs a bit of deconstruction. Go on, Greg.
Morphological analysis here. Here we go.
Yeah, come on.
Flexible, available, teachable. And after 4 years, he's finally.
Oh, I see. Sorry, FAT is the acronym that goes across the three.
Yes,
okay, right. Yes. I've got it now.
Yeah.
I was thinking there was an infamy there.
No. So, but that's what he says to his team, and actually. Oh man, there was just so many blessings, and there was a buzz about having them in Norwich because people love them, and they love that southern hospitality. They've just got a warmth that we are not so good at, and they are so used to just bringing Jesus into conversations because it's just normal for them, whereas we're a little bit reticent.
Yeah,
but they like just some of the connections they were able to make. With their very presence of being there.
And you've said to me before, Andy, I know that, having someone accost you in a park
right.
and ask you, what do you think about Jesus? When they do it in a southern accent, from Mississippi is very disarming. You can't help but respond to that in a way that actually, when someone comes at you with a Leicester accent near where I live and asks you the same question, you just run a mile. So let's make something of that.
Absolutely,
there's a warmth to that. Yeah,
there is a warmth to that, and
So at that point, with that sort of one-off event, did you both have an out? Did you have a conversation that kind of went, well, this may not work, in which case that's okay? Did you have that conversation, or did you just kind of assume it would be, that everything would be fine after the first date?
I'll give a stab at that. So one day and one morning, Reese and I just kind of disappear and we just go to a little cafe and we just kind of hash this out. And, and my thing was, I didn't want to presume that we would be invited to come back the next year. We wanted to make that available, but I really wanted to make sure that we were helpful. Because I do know that, part of a partnership is there are some sacrifices, there's some resources that are laid out there that, we wanted to earn our keep, you know what I'm saying? And we wanted to be helpful. And we're in a relationship now with him, not only Reese, but some of the others on his staff, where I can look at them and say, hey, do you need this? Do you want this? I mean, and we're honest with each other about that. And and that's a good place to be.
Sure. Yeah. Is that right? Would you echo that, Andy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that point, if that first date hadn't worked out, I mean, I think Greg's been very good, and he'll probably be very good at coaching the other American pastors just to be able to say, look, should we do this again, or has this been just a one-time blessing, and that's okay. But I guess for us, that first year, it did click. We made a lot of mistakes in the terms of the way we hosted them. We learned a lot from it, but just their presence made a massive difference. But for us, it wasn't just the partnership with them. It was like, is this a goer? Is Summerfest potentially going to work? And so there was a couple of things going on for us. So if Summerfest hadn't have worked, we probably would have said to Greg, thank you. We probably won't have this again. But because it worked, and also it worked with them, it's just given us some leverage to keep on going. And we had our third summer this summer, third year of them coming over, and it's just been a tremendous blessing.
So what does it look like, Greg, since then? So that was kind of the first one off. It's been two-way, hasn't it? So what does it look like? I was
fixing to answer that question before you even asked me. And I would encourage any of the pastors in the UK, you need to come see what they're doing with Summerfest. I kid with them is that they have created a monster in that I really believe if they don't continue to do that in Waterloo Park, their community will miss that event because they've been such a blessing and people are now looking forward to it. And for us, it's really fun because we're now seeing faces that we've seen 3 years now of kids. Sure. And I've seen UK kids grow up because every year I get to see the same kids over and over. And we look forward to seeing them again in July of 2025. And I hope that they remember us as well too. But it is at a point now where getting bigger. And we're looking to even double the size of our team that we'll bring. We usually bring anywhere from, we figured out the sweet spot is about 12 because transportation issues, but we're looking to at least try to double that this year to kind of help.
Well, that's still a sweet spot. You just got two lots of 12. That's the way to think about it. Yeah,
we're looking at buses. I mean, transporting people once you get on the ground, that's the hardest part.
Sure. Yeah. And what's happened since then? Because Andy, you've been over to Mississippi, and just tell us how that relationship. Well, tell us what that relationship has looked like since. It's not just been Summerfest, has it? What else has gone on?
No, so Greg very kindly invited us to come over and help them. So, I mean, having seen what we did, trying to do something a bit different in terms of running this holiday club in a park and the other things, it kind of inspired them to have a go at doing something similar there. And they invited us over. There's a team of about 14 of us who went to help in April this year. That's about right, Greg. What would you say into that?
Yeah, it was, we did it. We called it Spring Fest because it was spring for us. We learned a lot. We learned a lot of things, particularly this time of what not to do. And so we're planning ahead for 2025, and the invitation is open for them to come as well. But they kind of helped us do some of the same things. And I think Reese and I have both kind of made the same comment that one of the things that's really helpful in having a team come from particularly a different country is that it forces us as a church to get our act together in a lot of ways. It's just like, for example, you have a guest, a company coming over, you're going to clean your house up a little bit. You're going to kind of make sure that, things are in place, whatnot like that. And the accountability of the partnership in that particular way, I think has helped us thrive also. So, and so we've been good for each other.
Yeah, that's an interesting metaphor. Do you resonate with that, Andy, that you had to clean up your house a little bit to welcome some visitors?
Yes. Yeah, I absolutely do. And I mean, I just think, go on.
Literally, yes, we all had to do that.
Yeah, we did. But also, it just, it pushed us to do some things that we wouldn't normally do. So, like, there were families from church or individuals from church who were hosting some of our American friends, and for them, it was just pushing them into a new realm of hospitality that they'd never had to do before. But actually, they were having to step out in faith, and actually, it sort of started something new for them because they've hosted this American team, and now they might host some people for lunch, and it's had really positive incremental effects as we've had to look after these people who are brothers and sisters to come and help us on mission.
You've both hinted at you especially, Andy, that you made some mistakes along the way as well. It'd be easy for us to record, wouldn't it, a half-hour podcast and say everything's great, all work brilliantly, everyone should do it. But there are challenges, aren't there, in developing partnerships? And there are cultures to get across. There are other challenges. You just said you made some mistakes, Andy? Do you mind sharing what some of those are?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think one of my favorite. I cringe when I look back on it, but in that first year. We were just so chaotic in terms of trying to, there's a tent in the park and there was this team from America. We were trying to transport them somewhere. And we asked someone to look after catering who was a vegetarian. And do you know this, Greg? Every night you were eating corn. You weren't even eating meat. And just during about halfway through the weeks, Greg was like, I just feel like I need some protein. I was like, does he realize that literally every night you're just eating food that is not actually meat? So, so that was a comedy error, which we sorted it out. And can I say, when we went over there, they fed us like kings. So they
made up for the meat, did they?
Oh man, I can't believe
we bring the meats. We bring the meats, amongst other things, right, Reese? We can't tell everything on the podcast.
Just for any vegetarians that are listening, vegetarian options probably are available. But that's a great story.
Yeah, there was a story. The last night there was they served some soup, and I'm sure that it was great soup. And I was a little bit late coming into the dining hall there. And we have one of our gentlemen who's a member of our church who is originally from Chile. And so he speaks, even his English is in a kind of obviously a second language. And I tell him, his name's Ronnie. I say, Ronnie, don't worry. We're going to go somewhere else after this and get some food. And Ronnie's immediate reaction was, the Lord has heard my cry. So we took him to, what was that Mr. It's a Mediterranean.
Oh, it's a great Mr. Turkish restaurant in Norwich. You should all come. Adrian, I'll take you there one day.
Yes. They grill
when you say you should all come, do you know how many people listen to the podcast, Andy? You just need to be a little bit careful what you promise. What about for you, Greg? You'd been to the UK before.
Yes.
What were some of the challenges coming and ministering in a situation like this for you and your guys?
Obviously the logistical challenges, but those are things that you can always overcome.
Sure.
For us is, we're American, and we will say things with a smile on our face that you may not take as with a smile, and we are kind of a little bit brash. Obviously, we know that, but just trying to make sure that we connect well with people, obviously was a big challenge for our folks. They didn't want to be offensive to anyone or overstep any boundaries, but because we by nature in the South, particularly, are very relational people. And so,
did you choose your team carefully, Greg? Just tell us how you did that briefly. Did you just kind of say, anybody wants to come, here it is? Or did you do a kind of vetting or what?
Well, the first year it was kind of like, hey, we're going. Anybody want to go? And here we are. The second year, I had to do a little bit more specific recruiting because I knew we needed some specific skills for some things. particularly for you guys, you think that every American does line dancing. I mean, that's just the stereotypical American. No, we don't. There's a few people who do that. But so I had to make sure I had somebody on my team that knew how to line dance. And so I had to recruit and and so we're doing
a very specific task.
And incentivize.
Yes. I haven't seen it in 1 Corinthians 12. I'm sure it's in there somewhere, is it? But
yes, it's there somewhere. But yeah, we eventually had to recruit and then there were some that, there are some physical things that you do need to be able to get around and be mobile. We pick over here with the American Disabilities Act. I mean, where we have nice wide sidewalks, everything's level and all that stuff. Your stuff's so old, you can't do that. And so there are some people who just can't get around very well, and it really slows the team down. So our dynamic has changed as far as our median age a little bit as well too, which we've had some really great people who served, but it can be an exhausting trip too.
Yeah. We're getting towards the end, so I'd love to ask you both the same question, which is, what benefit has this partnership been, A, for you and B, for your church? Andy, why don't you kick off? To you personally as a leader, what's it done for you?
I think it's expanded my horizons in a really helpful way, just having a friend on the other side of the pond. And as you see, me and Greg do get on well, and he's going to be a lifelong Canary supporter now. But I think for just some of those conversations, someone from a completely different cultural setting coming into your world and being able to observe and actually make some helpful comments, for me as a leader, that's been really helpful. Because it is so culturally different over there. And I guess I've got some insight. When we went over there, I was able to see some stuff in the culture, which maybe you don't see so easily when you're swimming in it.
Yeah, yeah. What about for the church?
So I think for us, Summerfest for us comes at the start of the summer, and we're all shattered. We're all ready for a holiday. And so when this team comes over, it brings an energy and a vibrancy that is wonderful. But also, I just think that cultural partnership, seeing their sacrificial service, they're willing to spend, quite a bit of money to come, and they have very limited holiday. Their sacrificial service, willing to come and help us with mission. I think, again, it expands people's worlds as to what service looks like, what the potential is. I think it's been very healthy for our church family.
Great. And Greg, same questions for you, really.
Yeah, for us, it's just been, we've been in awe of what we've been able to see the last few years and what God is doing at CityGates Church. And just to be just a small part of that has been a privilege and an honor to do that. And just to see a church flourish and a church grow numerically and all of those things. And for us, developing those relationships. I mean, our people talk to their people, and I'll get a message, I'll meet, and hey, I talked to so-and-so this week. And I mean, they really communicate like they're buddies. I mean, and did you know so-and-so was doing so-and-so? And I'm like, and they're talking about each other. And those are lifelong connections. And I think it's good for us to know that wherever we find ourselves in the world, that we're not alone, that we have brothers and sisters who want to journey well with us, and to have those friendships. Yeah. And I wouldn't trade anything in the world for it.
Yeah. I mean, what about for you personally, Greg? Any personal observations on that? That's the church. Is that your story too, or is there a bit more for you to say personally?
No, that's me. I've grown to love those people. I've threatened a couple of times, I'm just going to pack up and move. My wife is like, oh, pump the brakes. And so I just want to be a volunteer, but it's just really cool to see that. And I'm grateful for their friendship, their partnership, and they have loved on our people well too. And so as a pastor, you can't ask for anything else.
Yeah, well, what a great story. I've thoroughly enjoyed hearing it. It's put a smile on my face and a spring in my step. Thank you so much. Now, Greg, you have sampled the delights of Norwich. You're now going to sample the delights of Blackpool.
Yes.
Are you ready for this? This is a big step up. So you're bringing a team to Blackpool,
yes,
which is great. We're so excited, and we're looking forward to seeing you there.
Yeah.
You're going to be in Blackpool. And we've made available, I just need to explain this so people will know, it would be great for people to meet you and some of the team, just so that they can imagine themselves what a partnership might look like. We're not promising anything about where things might go, but you've both agreed to be kind of point men on this. So it'd be great just to have an opportunity to meet you. So what we've done is we've set aside some dinner tables. Now, if you're listening or watching before the Leaders Conference, these are the details you need. Wednesday lunchtime at the conference, there'll be some tables set aside. Come and have a meal with these guys, hear a bit more of the story, ask your questions, dream some dreams, right? That's what you need to do.
Yeah.
You need to think. And obviously, Annie, you're from quite a thriving church in many ways in terms of size. People might think I'm from a smaller church, I'm from a rural church, but actually this kind of connection can work in any setting, can't it? It doesn't need to be city centre. It can work in any setting. So you guys are going to make yourself available. You're bringing your team, Greg. We're really grateful for that. And if we see you around, we will bless you just for the blessing you've been to us. So that's what's going to happen in Blackpool. I guess the app will mean that we can contact you. People can contact you at other times too in Blackpool. Sure. So if you see these guys walking around, do just catch them and just let them know who you are, and we'll have a great time together. So listen, guys, thank you. You stirred my heart, and all praise to God for that. Thanks very much. And it's just delightful to observe your friendship and just what this blessing has done both for you and for the churches you serve. So what a joy to spend some time with you. Thanks so much. We'll catch up with you in Blackpool.
See you then.
Cheers.
Yep. And if you've enjoyed the podcast, please do rate and review it. It helps other people find it. And we'll catch up with you in the next episode soon.